Alien students stunned by Deathworlder first aid techniques. The medical training hall buzzed with quiet conversation as alien students from across the galaxy gathered. Each species brought their unique physiology and healing philosophies, sharing knowledge under the mentorship of the Galactic Medical Exchange Program. For the students, it was a rare opportunity to broaden their horizons. For their professor, Drive, Mara Callan, a human from Earth, it was a chance to leave a lasting impression. Today, Drive, Callan began, her voice clear and steady. We'll explore first aid techniques for extreme emergencies. Please note that these methods are tailored to humans, but the principles may prove useful in unexpected situations. The students, a kaleidoscope of forms, feathery avians, gelatinous glovians, and chitin-armored ventarians, nodded eagerly, their varied appendages clutched data pads, ready to record. Drive, Callan brought up a hologram of a human body. Human survival often relies on immediate intervention. Our environments are unforgiving, she smiled, a little too knowingly, as she prepared the demonstration table. First, she showed a standard human technique, CPR. The avian squawked in alarm when she mimed chest compressions on a dummy. "You're breaking the ribcage," squeaked Tyler, a Glovian whose body rippled with nervous energy. "On purpose?" "In certain cases, yes," Callan replied. "A few broken ribs are preferable to death." Next, she demonstrated the use of a tourniquet. The room erupted in gasps as she explained the process. "But that cuts off circulation entirely," objected Vraz, a Ventarian with spindly limbs and a clicking voice. "You would willingly risk losing a limb?" "If the alternative is bleeding to death," Callan said matter-of-factly, "then yes." The real shock came with the final demonstration. Drive, Callan displayed a small, ruggedized device, the human emergency staple gun. As she explained its use for closing deep wounds in high-stress environments, Zyvla, an avian with iridescent plumage, fainted. "That's barbaric," exclaimed Hog, a hulking Tarkan. "Surely you have advanced healing technology for such injuries." "Of course we do," Callan said, unfazed, "but you don't always have the luxury of a medbay or nanotech in the middle of a jungle or battlefield. Sometimes, you improvise." As she demonstrated on a synthetic flesh model, the students stared, their disbelief palpable. "Humans really are as insane as the rumors say," whispered Isla. "Efficient, not insane," Callan corrected with a wink. "These techniques save lives. Adaptability is our strength, and I encourage you to apply that principle in your own practices." By the end of the session, the alien students left the hall with a newfound respect for the resilience and recklessness of humanity. Tales of the Deathworlder first aid tactics spread quickly, becoming a favored topic in the galactic forums. For Drive, Callan, it was just another day proving why humans had earned their reputation as unpredictable, resourceful survivors. As the students filed out of the training hall, murmurs of amazement and unease rippled through the group. Isla, still visibly unsettled, wobbled over to Vrus and whispered, "Do you think they actually practice these violent methods regularly?" Vrus's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "If their worlds are as hostile as they claim, perhaps such measures are necessary. Still, it seems excessive." Behind them, Zyvla regained consciousness, her feathers slightly ruffled. "Excessive? It's outright madness. They intentionally inflict trauma to fix trauma. It's a paradox." The group's chatter halted as Drive, Callan emerged, catching the tail end of their conversation. "A paradox, maybe," she said with a sly grin, "but one that works. If you want, I can arrange a field trip to Earth. First-hand experience is the best way to understand our methods." The suggestion was met with collective silence, broken only by a faint, incredulous chirp from Zyvla. "I think I'll pass." The next morning, the students were still processing the human approach when the unexpected happened. A sharp alarm blared through the halls, an emergency. A nearby training station had malfunctioned, and a young Ventarian was injured. Greenish blood dripped from a deep gash in their exoskeleton, pooling on the floor. Panic ensued as students scrambled for advanced medical tools, but none were nearby. Drive, Callan rushed to the scene, her emergency kit slung over one shoulder. "Clear the way," she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. The students watched in horrified fascination as she assessed the injury. Major blood loss, tourniquet needed. Without hesitation, she fashioned one from a strip of fabric and secured it above the wound. "You're cutting off circulation," Isla wailed, his gelatinous form quivering. "It's temporary," Callan snapped, applying pressure to the wound. "Someone get me the emergency staple gun." Zyvla hesitated, then darted forward, her talons trembling as she handed over the device. Callan worked quickly, closing the gash with precise, practiced movements. Within minutes, the bleeding stopped, and the Ventarian's vitals stabilized. The room fell silent, the weight of the moment sinking in. Finally, Dog spoke, his deep voice rumbling with reluctant admiration. "You saved them, and you didn't even use advanced tech." Callan looked up, her hands steady but her expression softening. "Sometimes, you don't need fancy tools, just knowledge, quick thinking, and the will to act." Later, as the students gathered in the common area, the atmosphere had shifted. Their conversations were no longer filled with skepticism but with curiosity. "I still think their methods are brutal," Zyvla admitted, preening a stray feather, "but there's no denying their effectiveness." Isla nodded, his usual nervous energy tempered with thoughtfulness. "It's not madness, it's preparation for the unthinkable." Vras clicked his mandibles in agreement. "Perhaps we could all learn something from their adaptability." From that day forward, the alien students began incorporating human first aid principles into their studies, albeit with some trepidation. Meanwhile, Drive, Callan became a galactic legend, her unconventional methods earning both awe and respect. For the students, the experience was more than a lesson in first aid, it was a lesson in the sheer tenacity of humanity, a species that thrived where others faltered, and for Drive, Callan, it was proof that sometimes, shocking the system was the best way to teach. The incident with the injured Ventarian had ripple effects far beyond the walls of the training hall. The Galactic Medical Exchange Program began receiving inquiries from across the galaxy. Alien academics, medical practitioners, and even military organizations expressed interest in learning more about human emergency tactics. Dr. Callan, now a household name among the galaxy's intellectual elite, found herself inundated with requests for lectures, workshops, and collaborations. Back in the classroom, the alien students had changed. Their initial skepticism had transformed into a mix of cautious curiosity and admiration. Dr. Callan noticed it immediately when she began her next lesson. "All right, class," she said, setting down her holographic tablet. "Today, we'll discuss field improvisation in medical crises. You may never encounter these situations, but if you do, you'll thank me later." Isla raised a gelatinous appendage, his previous timidity replaced with a cautious but genuine interest. "Dr. Callan, is it true that humans once used honey and sugar as antiseptics in emergencies?" Dr. Callan grinned. "Absolutely. Honey has natural antimicrobial properties. In environments where we lacked advanced medicine, humans learned to use what was available." The class buzzed with discussion as Callan delved into other ingenious, if unconventional, human solutions, using tree sap to close wounds, creating makeshift splints from branches, and even boiling water to sterilize tools in the absence of high-tech alternatives. Midway through the lecture, Vras raised a spindly limb. "Dr. Callan, do you think these methods are why humans thrive on death worlds? Your species seems to embrace danger with an unsettling ease." Callan chuckled. "It's not that we embrace danger, it's that we're forced to adapt. When survival is the priority, creativity becomes second nature. Every solution we've developed is born from necessity." The conversation deepened as students shared their own species' emergency methods, comparing and contrasting them with human approaches. The collaborative atmosphere was a testament to how far the group had come since their first introduction to humanity's barbaric techniques. That evening, in the quiet of the dormitory, the students gathered around a hollow projector. Hogg had discovered a video feed from Earth showcasing historical footage of wilderness survival training. They watched in stunned silence as humans demonstrated fire-making, shelter building, and emergency first aid in hostile environments. "This is their normal?" Zyvla whispered, her feathers fluffing in astonishment. Isla quivered beside her. "No wonder they survive death worlds. Their entire culture is built on overcoming adversity." Hogg leaned forward, his gaze fixed on the screen. "It's not just survival, it's their ability to thrive in chaos. That's something we can all learn from." As the footage ended, the group fell silent, each lost in thought. Finally, Vras spoke, his voice quiet but resolute. Perhaps we should stop thinking of humans as reckless and start thinking of them as resourceful. Their methods might seem extreme, but their resilience is unparalleled." The others nodded, a newfound respect settling over the group. Weeks later, the alien students had their chance to put their new knowledge to the test. During an off-world expedition, their shuttle encountered an unexpected iron storm, forcing an emergency landing on a remote, inhospitable planet. The team faced harsh conditions, freezing nights, venomous creatures, and limited supplies. Dr. Callan's training proved invaluable. Isla used a human technique to create a fire, keeping the group warm through the frigid night. Zivla applied a makeshift splinter Rog's injured limb, following Callan's instructions to the letter. Vrus organized the group, employing human principles of teamwork and resource allocation. By the time they were rescued, the team had not only survived but bonded over their shared experience. They had become living proof of the adaptability Dr. Callan had instilled in them. When they returned to the Galactic Medical Exchange Program, they were greeted as heroes. Their story spread, cementing humanity's reputation as the galaxy's ultimate survivors and educators. Dr. Callan, watching from the sidelines, couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. "You taught them well," said a fellow instructor, nodding toward the returning students. Callan smiled. "They taught themselves. All I did was show them what was possible."